Thank you for being here the week before Thanksgiving. It's great to see so many people in the room. I like to keep my talks very informal. That was really great going around. I know it takes up a bit of time to introduce people, but it gives me a really good sense of who I have in the audience, so I can try to give some examples that are more relevant to you guys. I heard a lot of marketing communications and public affairs. I'm surprised at how many people are in this room have that, which is awesome. Please contact me. We do have a lot of marketing communications positions. But I want you to get out of this what you need. So I have no problem with you guys just interjecting. Please comment, ask questions. The whole job search process is not, it's an art, it's not a science. It's subjective. People have different experiences and different opinions. So don't take what I say here as like the Bible. It's just my perspective and my experience. So you guys have things to contribute to this conversation too. So please raise your hand and please offer your comments and questions. It'll make it helpful for everybody. This is super quick agenda. We've already kind of gone through the introductions. I'll introduce myself a little bit just so you know where I'm coming from with all of this. And then we're going to quickly talk about just the changing workforce, workforce and workplace, just to give you a sense of, from the higher level, what's going on. And then we'll drill down and talk more about jobs and industries that are good for flexible work and how for you to find and position yourself for flexible work. Sound good? Okay. A little bit about myself first. I started this Flex Professionals about 10 years ago. I had a background in project management. I worked for affordable housing. That was my last job. I loved it. I worked for a company called Quadell. I don't know if you know them. But I was a project manager for a company that was a government contractor, so I have government contracting experience. I worked for USAID as well. And in 2005, I left the workforce entirely. I had, at the time, 3 children, and somebody's job had to give, and it was mine. And I left the workforce, and 2 years later, my husband died. He was 42. He was a lawyer downtown, and I found myself having an 8, a 6, and a 2-year-old, and a gap in my resume. And I grieved and then got tired of worrying about my children and felt that they, in particular, needed to see somebody at home working. And I was working, taking care of them, but nobody at home was actually going out there and working, and I felt that they needed to. I needed it for myself to go back to work, and I think my children needed to learn the value of work by seeing somebody doing that. And so I realized quickly, though, that going downtown and doing consulting work and having to be billable wasn't going to work for my life. And I had the opportunity, and it is an opportunity, part-time and flexible work can be an opportunity. It's not everybody has that opportunity, but I did, and I wanted to work part-time, but there really were no good part-time jobs out there. And so, long story short, I got together with 2 other women to really find those jobs out there for other people because we couldn't find them ourselves. So that's what we do. We are essentially matchmakers. We work with the employer and we work with the candidate. And we really teach employers. Most of our energy is talking to employers and trying to sell to them that if they embrace this flexible work model, they will bring on a higher level of talent. They can find talent pools that are relatively untapped because people like me who are looking for part-time, we weren't using traditional employment channels to find part-time work because most of the stuff out there on Indeed is full-time. And so that's what we do. Who do we work with? We work with my guests because many of you fit into more than one of those categories. My guess is all of you in this room have more than 10 years of work experience. Most, if not all of you, have some type of college degree. Some of you are perhaps re-entering after a career break. Some of you are looking to scale back, maybe working 40 hours or plus right now. Don't want to do that anymore. And some of you might be what I call second career professionals, where you've been there and done that, and you don't necessarily want to do the same thing 40 hours a week anymore. But you also don't want to leave the workforce entirely and 100% retire. And then we have a lot of you in this room that I bet are transitioning. So you are looking to do something slightly different than what you're doing now. So those are the candidates that we work with. And how do we work with you? We place you into employers in the local DC metro area. We place you in flexible roles. 80% of our jobs are part-time. How do you define part-time? It can be anywhere from 8 hours a week to 32 hours a week. Sometimes we actually have candidates that are only working 8 hours a month to 32 hours a week. We also place you into full-time flexible roles. I'd say about 20% of our jobs are full-time flex. What does that mean? The employer has to agree to at least 8 hours of remote work a week. And how that looks is negotiated between you and the employer. So some people do work from home 1 day a week. Others are, I need to be at home to care for an aging family member. I need to be at home to care for a child. And so they do some work at home after 3 o'clock or something like that. Most of our positions you're hired directly on by the employer. You're a valued W-2 employee. You just don't happen, you're not working 40 hours a week. In other situations, the employer wants to kind of try before they buy, test you out, which can also be to your advantage as well, because at this point in your careers, you're testing them out too. And in that scenario, you become our Flex Professionals hourly employee, but you happen to be on site for the employer. Any questions about that?
What's your take on, are employers getting more receptive to people working remotely, or is there still a lot of reluctance to let people not check into the office anymore?
So, I think there's so much out there about remote work. You would think that everybody gives you remote opportunities. If you Google it, you Google workplace flexibility, and it's all about remote workplaces, and you would think that every employer gives you that. My feeling is that that's not the case. Although we are moving towards a more flexible workplace, it is still not the case. The best way to get to remote work is to work on site first, gain the confidence of the employer, and to get remote work because of that, because of your work record. Most of our jobs are a combination, I don't know if I have that yet, a combination of on-site, virtual, and a combination. I'd say the highest number of our jobs are a combo, where you get a little bit of remote work, but not 100%. Those are the hard ones. So where do we source our candidates? Go ahead.
I don't want to 7 years.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, no worries. Our candidates, and I bet you have more than that. You just only quantify the exact number of times you've been working and maybe the field that you're in right now. But my guess is you have more. Our candidates have lots of diverse skill sets, and I think most of you in this room have those skill sets. So we do the gamut of business operations. Where we're really strong, what I call back office. I say that because when you're client facing, when your client's the government and you're on a contract and the government is your employer, your client, sometimes the government is not very flexible in terms of they're paying millions of dollars for a contractor. They expect those people to be around and available, so they tend to not be great part-time jobs. But the back office for companies where you're doing your finance, admin, from anywhere from COO to a high-level admin, HR, marketing, communications, proposal writing, technical writing. Those jobs tend to be very flexible. We'll talk about that later. Those are some of our clients. We work with over 600 businesses in the DC metro area. We do find, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, and how to position yourself for part-time. The small businesses, this model is great for small businesses. And it's often overlooked. I believe small businesses are often overlooked by job seekers. You tend to look at the companies that are out there on Indeed, the companies you hear about in the news, the companies you see on the buildings when you take the metro into town. But there are lots of small businesses out there.
So are we allowed to ask questions?
Sure.
So I actually wanted to target small businesses because I think that they have technical expertise that's
Yes.
much deeper
Yes.
than, and how would you go about finding engineer, I mean, how do you go about finding these things through library resources? What would you recommend to do
Yeah.
to find them?
So I'm going to get to that later on in the
Okay.
presentation, but I will just give you a quick tidbit on that one. You have to find them. They're not going to find you like the bigger companies do. Where are they? They're in your neighborhoods. They're in your church groups. They're in your local organizations. That's where small business owners are. So you doing the legwork to find, ask around, and also do legwork in terms of local companies. They're not going to be the first ones that come up on your Google searches, but if you drill down, you can find them. And in some ways, they're easier to get into because the hiring manager is the president of the company or the second tier, and you can find those people on their websites and get to them. So that would be my big tip on that. I know it requires more legwork on your part, but the small businesses that you, especially for flexible work, you want the small businesses that probably are within like a 10-mile radius of you, right? You're not going to want to travel that far away for a part-time job. So narrow your search down to a very small radius, and you're going to be happier, and so are they, because for flexible work, you're going to want to be close to them, and they are going to want that too, just in case you have to stop in to pick something up or to attend a meeting on an off day. It's a win-win for both of you. We'll talk more about that. Okay, how we find our candidates. Really through non-traditional grassroots efforts. That's how we find people. We are very high touch. We don't ever send anybody to a client if we haven't met you on the phone and then in person. So you'd be amazed how people come across differently on the phone and in person. A lot of companies don't give you a second look if you come across low energy over the phone. We do, because that's what we're about. We're in this not just to replace butts and chairs. We're in this because we believe in the mission and in our model. We're really a mission-based company. Oops. Okay. Any other questions about that? Okay. Higher level. We'll go through this pretty quickly. What do we have, about an hour?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's 11:15.
I'll go through this pretty quickly, but raise your questions if you have, your hands if you have any questions. But this is just kind of higher level. You're kind of transitioning right now. You're getting back in. What does this workplace look like? What we have seen, we've been in business for 10 years. It's unbelievable how much the workplace has changed in the 10 years that we have been around. You're going to find, obviously here, even tighter in the DC metro area, a tightening labor market. What does this mean for you guys? It's in some ways, a job seeker's market. We find that companies you will read that companies are having a challenging time finding talent. I would put a little caveat on that. I think right now they're having a hard time finding a certain kind of technical talent. So if you're into cloud computing or data analytics, it's a good job market for you. Do I personally find through my company that these small businesses are knocking at our doors saying, I can't find the right people? I don't feel it yet. I don't know why that is, but my gut tells me that given our political situation, I believe that companies aren't quite comfortable or confident yet to get out there and to hire. And I think that the last 10 years with this gig economy that we'll talk about, in some ways, has resulted in companies not paying people for what they're worth. And I don't personally find that companies are out there right now willing to up the pay rate to get good people. That's just my take on it. Will that happen? I don't know. So, but it is, in general, I think you're in a better position than you were 5 years ago to find a job. Changing demographics. There are now 4 generations in the workplace. Challenges and opportunities. All of this bring challenges and opportunities. What I would say for you, know that when you go into interview, just assume that the person interviewing you is likely to be younger than you. And get comfortable with that. Because if you're not comfortable with that, you project that onto the interviewer, and guess what? They're not going to be comfortable with it. And it's going to be a no-go. But if you walk in there with an energy, with a positivity, and with a complete comfort that the person interviewing you and possibly supervising you is younger than you, then you're going to, just in your delivery, you are going to alleviate that as a concern. Go ahead.
What message is the best to convey to somebody who's younger? What are their concerns? Are there concerns that you're going to replace them? Are there concerns that it's going to be awkward? What are their concerns going into this?
I think there's an awkwardness. I think there's a stigma that older workers are set in their ways. So expressing an openness to new ideas, asking questions that reflect that you're open to doing things differently, that you're open to newer technologies, is a good way of handling that. Okay. This gig economy, I think this statistic is staggering. By next year, there'll be more freelancers, contractors, 1099, consultants, temps, people working for sort of outsourced third-party providers than there are going to be full-time traditional W-2 workers. Personally, I have a real kind of a discomfort with this because on the one hand, Flex Professionals, my company, has probably benefited from this gig economy, right? But personally, I think there's a lot of problems in this country where workers can't be provided the hours and the health insurance they need to live quality lives. So something's going to give. I'd be the first one to say to you, if you need full-time, or if you need health insurance benefits, our flexible model is not going to work for you. If you're looking for flexibility and you need health insurance, you need to be a real rock star candidate to get both by an employer, unless it's full-time flex. Full-time flex at a company, you'll probably get health insurance. Do I think that's right? No. Do I hope that it's going to change and that companies like ours will ultimately go out of business because companies offer part-time and health insurance? That would be awesome. I'd be happy to go out of business for that to happen. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but that's the challenge with this gig economy. But what you're going to find, if you're transitioning, if you have the resources or you can figure out a way to find insurance that is affordable, then this gig economy can be a real advantage to you because you can go in transitioning or looking for flexible work and you can sell yourself as being pretty competitive if you don't need the insurance. So there are trade-offs here. Any questions on that? Who wants flexibility? Everybody. Everybody wants it these days. That's the bullet that I think is most important for you to look at, though. The Department of Labor estimates that in the next 5 years, 1 out of every 2 employees is going to need flexibility in their work in order to care for aging aging family members. Baby boomers are retiring in droves. There's a lot of people that are probably in this room part of the sandwich generation where you're still caring for children at home, and yet you're also caring for aging parents. So this is going to be a crisis in this country in terms of employees, but it's also an opportunity that I think if you're looking for a flexible career, you're more likely to get it now because employers are going to have to give it as part of a business strategy to retain good workers. So I think that's where the opportunity is. Pay gap and gender inequality. I won't spend too much time on this because I think a lot of you do. A lot of you have gaps in your resumes. Are you a gap of more than a year? Okay. Career gaps are costly. They're more costly for women, and they're even more costly for minority women. And part of that is because women tend to leave the workforce for caregiving at a time when men are starting to accelerate in their careers. And so those career gaps can be very costly. Having said that, it's also an opportunity for some of you where you can present yourself. I don't believe in slave labor, and I don't believe in ever you ought to be paid for your value, but you may be an affordable option. You should always be competitive, and you shouldn't underprice yourselves. But sometimes with a pay gap, you can be an affordable option. And some companies, really good companies, I've had clients say to me, you know what, these candidates look great. I can't afford the Audi right now. I can only afford the Toyota, or I can only afford the Ford. And I'm not talking about necessarily skills. I'm talking about your pay rate at that point and the fact that you might have a tremendous amount of experience, but they might be discounting you because you have a gap. But if you add your pay rate in there, you become very attractive. Growing skills gap. I will just summarize. I will drill this down locally. In Fairfax County alone, there are 40,000 job openings that are unfilled right now because employers can't find people with the right technology skills. So, those of you looking to transition, those of you looking and trying to evaluate what it is that you want to do, if you have a technical aptitude, this is a good time to get some technical training in areas where there are growth opportunities employment-wise. So I just say that if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, come talk to me. We do have a program with NOVA. But if you're looking at where could those opportunities be, Google NOVA, Northern Virginia Community College, NOVA Workforce. They have lots of data up there about labor market trends. Okay, so higher level again. This is where the job growth is projected by 2020. Where there's estimated levels of really good job growth, in my opinion, there are also opportunities for flexibility. Because where there's job growth, especially in the technical fields, companies are having a hard time finding, they have so many needs, they're having a hard time finding candidates to meet those needs. That is a good opportunity for somebody looking for flexibility to hook them with your talent and then to negotiate for flexibility, okay? So if you look at these growth areas, I would say other than advanced manufacturing and wholesale and transport, everything else is a growth area in the DMV area. Don't discount this because you don't have an interest in this industry area, or you don't have technical knowledge in the industry area. Especially for all of you marketing and communications people out there, all of these industries, you might not have healthcare experience or energy experience, but if these industries are growing, they need marketing people, they need communications people, they need finance people, okay? So look at this from a wide angle. in terms of growing industries for flexible work. This is the areas where this company on the bottom here, Flex Jobs, have you heard of that company? They are, actually they're in the process of changing their model, but for years and years they have been sort of the thought leader on flexible work. And they have a huge platform for finding flexible work. And a lot of employers that post jobs to that platform, they actually take our jobs from our website and pull them onto their platform. Sometimes people think they're applying to Flex Jobs when they apply to our company, but we don't charge you. But they have a lot of data, and based on their data, these are the areas that are growing in industries for flexible work. I would say from our perspective, the hot ones here are human resources and recruiting and accounting and finance. That's where we find a lot of our jobs are in those areas. So drilling down to us, these are the areas where we find we place the most candidates into part-time opportunities. Finance is a great one, especially transactional finance. So anything from an accounting clerk to a mid-level accountant to an accounting manager or a senior accountant. Those are great opportunities. I know there's a few of you in here that have that skill set. It's not only great for flexible work, one of the reasons why it's great is it's also a good one for virtual. There's a lot of companies that don't need you in there all the time. You can come in and pick up the information you need, go back home, do the work, and come back and return a report or what have you. So those tend to be great ones. Another reason why they're great, especially with small businesses, is a small business doesn't need an accountant. Some of them might not need an accountant for 40 hours a week. They might need an accountant for just 10 hours a week. And for you can build a book of business in that area. So we have a lot of finance people that will come in and say, right now I just need 10 hours a week. And then all of a sudden something happens in there, like I can take on another client for 10 hours a week. So that's a really good example. Proposal writing is big, HR recruiting, marketing communications is another very big one, and operations. Okay, any questions on that? There's very few people in here who went through and told me about what they did, where I was like, they're not going to be able to find flexible work in that area. I don't think there's anybody that said anything that I thought flexible work won't work for them. So I think you guys are all in a good spot for that. So how do you find it? How do you find it? That's the hard part, right? So I put this in here because a lot of you guys talked about your transitioning, maybe thinking about doing something different. And we find that our candidates that are looking for flexible work value two things more than anything else. They value flexibility of schedule, and they value work mission or work environment. They value that more than their job title. They value it more than substance of the work. And so that is telling to me about the kind of people that really, especially at our age, that are looking for flexible work. So you need to really figure out, though, what it is that you bring to the table when it comes to flexible work. So the example I would give you is this. You have this stellar career, nonprofit career where you were working at a high level, and it's all over your resume, and you're now looking for part-time work, and you don't want to manage people anymore. As a matter of fact, you don't want to work in the nonprofit industry anymore, right? If I look at your resume and I see nonprofit and higher level leadership roles, and you're now pursuing, I don't know, an account management job for an IT company, I'm going to look at you and I'm going to see that you're not a fit, right? I'm going to wrongly conclude that you're not a fit. So really understanding what you bring to the table and being able to communicate, not just what your background is, but more so why you're transitioning and why you feel like you could add value to the organization is really important. So take some time to understand first what you bring to the table in terms of skills and traits, especially if you're transitioning. You need to know what skills you had that will allow you to transition into a flexible role that you want to continue to use, right? And you know, even if you're transitioning, you got to prove to the employer that the skills that you want to use are also, you have to give them examples that you have experience using them, right? Even if it's doing something in a different industry. So it's just really important to think through that and think through your motivations and your values. What's most important to you right now? What is most important in terms of your work preferences? Being able to understand that and to articulate it to an employer is super important. Here it is. What of these are most important to you in your flexible role that you're looking for right now? Take the time to take some note cards, jot down these things, and order them. What's your top preference? And order them so that you know as you're looking and you're evaluating and qualifying opportunities, you take into consideration what's most important to you. Okay? And the ones that are most important are the ones that you should negotiate hard for and not give in, right? There's always trade-offs. So why do employers tap professionals like you for flexible work? We find that the more specialized or experienced you are in a certain area, the more industry or technical knowledge you have, the more likely you are to find flexible work in that area. Where it can be challenging is when you, we find we have been least successful placing candidates looking for flexible work into more administrative roles, like admin roles, because you can typically find a younger employee who's more tech savvy to take on those roles, right? The deeper your contacts, your networks, your professional relationships, people will hire you for that. So these are things that you need to sell, both on your resume, as your network. The deeper your technical or industry knowledge, we find that employers tap you for what we call seasonal work. So if proposal writing is a good example, it tends to be cyclical. Taxes, sub-CPA work is cyclical. Landscaping, it sounds like a crazy thing, but a landscaping company or an irrigation company doesn't need somebody to work full-time all year round. They need some people to work a lot during the summer when they're turning on the irrigation systems, or in the spring, dead over Christmas in January and February, and then it picks back up in the spring. So we have a lot. So you might not want to be the person turning on the irrigation systems, but you could be the person managing the warehouse, managing their social media, managing their HR. Okay, so think about companies like that. We have a lot of candidates that actually don't mind, even with flexible work, working 40 hours during certain months of the year. They just don't want to do it all the time. And we have a lot of candidates that are like, yeah, I'm totally fine with having certain periods where I don't work at all. So not everybody fits that role. Some of you want stable, flexible work, but some of you, if you don't mind those fluctuations in time, in hours, sell that to the employer. Small businesses in particular like that about a candidate. They don't want to have to commit to hiring somebody for part-time, 20 hours a week, if they're not quite sure if every week they need somebody for 20 hours. So if you're the kind of candidate to say, you know what, I'm going to cap it off at 30, don't want to work more than 30, but if half the year I work 30 and the other half I work 10, I'm okay with. If you're that kind of person, sell that. It can be very attractive to certain employers. Project work does as well. If you are in a position where taking on a project is something that's attractive to you, it also can be a good sell. So who to target for flexible work? Organizations aligned with your passions and your interests. A lot of people we find that are transitioning are often transitioned because they want to do work in an area that means more to them. So you will be attracted because of your experience to those kinds of organizations, especially when you express that you share a passion with them. That is something that's really attractive. And so I think it's important for you to be able to communicate that. Small, high-growth businesses. That's our sweet spot. We have found, and I'll give you what that means. We have found for our own company that our best client has anywhere from $5 to $50 million in revenue and about 30 to 250 employees. So smaller than that, they hire maybe once a year for your position. You're not likely to hit them at the right time to get that job, right? So this really small businesses are probably not worth it for you unless you find a smaller business through your own personal contacts and engage that way. But if you're just going cold, look for the businesses between $5 and $50 million in revenue, 30 to 250 people. Look for businesses that are growing. So not the business that has been around necessarily for 50 years and has only had 10 staff people and don't intend to change their model, but a company that's growing is a really good target for you. Where do you find them? Washington Business Journal. Subscribe to them for a couple of months, or go online. I think you can actually pay a monthly fee to receive an online information about them. Your economic development authorities. Fairfax County has a powerful economic development authority. It's called fceda.org. They have unbelievable information on their website about companies that are moving to Fairfax County. Arlington has the same thing. Moving to Fairfax County, companies that have won contracts. They have an eBird. It's a weekly newsletter. You sign up for it. It comes out. It's super short. It's very creatively written, well written. It talks about the movers and shakers, the people coming and going, companies that have merged, companies that have bought new office space. A company that's buying new office space is a great place to start. They have snippets on small businesses in there. That's really great. Arlington is the same way. They got really good, and so does Montgomery County. So Google your local economic development authority to find the small businesses that are growing. They're the ones that are in the news. Companies with formal flex work policies. So you've got the small businesses, and then for flex work, you've got the big companies that have decided to hire expensive consultants to develop flexible work policies. If they're spending the money doing that, they're spending the money on PR to market to candidates that they have flexible work, and you're going to know those companies and find them because they're going to talk about this on their career pages. So go to their career pages and you will find those, and do research that way. Those are also good companies to target. Mission-driven organizations. We find that the nonprofits, organizations that have a real value their employees and have a mission where you can tell that their mission and their people are intertwined, are really good companies for flex work. they advertise that. And companies promoting intergenerational workforces that actually have that level of sophistication to know that the way of the future is for their companies to have layers of different candidates from different organizations. Because the millennials want flex work so badly and they're driving this in some ways, they're asking for it and demanding it. We want it, but we're afraid to ask for it. If you can find companies that both cater to millennials, but also have an appreciation for the older worker, my guess is that those companies are great companies for flexible work. I love that survey 1,000 employees. Small businesses allow employees more control over the hours they work. Why is that? I will give you an example, and this is where you can sell yourself to a small company, especially if you have a really deep skill set. So I'm a proposal writer, and I work 40, 50 hours a week doing government proposals for Northrop Grumman. I've got a lot of experience, and I'm good at what I do. Northrop Grumman's not going to give me part-time hours for proposal writing. They've got, their proposals are too big, their volume is too high, that it's not worth it for them, A, to give me that, and B, if they gave everybody part-time work, they have to hire 100 proposal writers instead of 50, right? Doesn't make sense for them. So I want flexible work, I go to a small business. That small business is dying for my experience because I've got Northrop Grumman experience, I've got really good, from Northrop Grumman I've been trained in proposal writing, I know how the process is run, I can manage it, I have the technical skills that they want. And so small business says, well, I can't pay her the Northrop Grumman rate, but I can tell her, sure, if you want to work 20 hours a week, that's fine. If you want to do 10 of them at home, that's fine, because I can give you that. I can't give you the higher pay rate, but I can give you the flexibility. That's why the small businesses are really good for this model. Okay. How to find it. So, this isn't for everybody, but if you have the skill set to be a freelancer or a consultant and you brand yourself that way, you almost take out the issue with the employer in terms of where you work and when you work and how you work. Because if you're a freelancer, I as the employer don't control your schedule. All I care about is the deliverable, right? So it doesn't matter to me when you work or where you work. As a matter of fact, if you come into my office all the time and have my company's email address, you're really acting like a W-2 employee, and I ought to be hiring you that way. So for some people, not everybody, because being a freelancer also requires you to get your own business, right? Which is the hard part for a lot of people. But if you feel that you can brand yourself as a freelancer, it's a great way to get flexible work. For those of you in here that are interested in accounting, for those of you interested in marketing roles, this could work for you. And once you become sort of that freelancer, you're kind of hired as a 1099, and you have a little bit more say to say, oh, I'll only take that work. I can do it, but only for 20 hours a week. And if you're talented enough and they like you, they're often willing to let you do that. Okay? There's a lot of job boards out there. I think at the end of this presentation I have links to those, and I can send you this presentation if you can give me your emails or email me. I can send you a copy of the presentation. There are lots of specialized job boards these days that specialize in either flexible work, in helping employers with career gaps land jobs, and those are great resources for you for identifying where and what types of flexible opportunities are out there. I'm pretty sure at the end, I think. Let me just make sure. Yep. These are examples of some of these connection platforms. So the first one is called, this is a woman, Catherine Solomon, Sollman. She is a big proponent of particularly women being very careful, advising women not to leave the workforce and to keep their skills sharp and to stay part-time because of the economic disadvantage you're at when you do leave the workforce for an extended periods of time. And in her work, she has created this Flex Women Alliance. And if you're a male in the room, you can totally access all of this information as well. But that link provides you with a probably the most comprehensive listing I have found out there of companies that work in this flexible workspace. We're on there as well. But it's a great resource for you to go look and to see what's out there. Okay? Having said that, I would not stop at these connection platforms. Don't stop there on your job search. Don't just click the button and submit your resume. Because even in a connection platform, it goes down a black hole. So use it as intel. Often some of these connection platforms name the companies and then go directly to the company to find the job. So even in our company, we do try to look at every resume that goes in our system, but some fall through the cracks for sure. So if you in this audience feel that you are a good candidate for flexible work, don't just go and take my card and submit your resume onto our website. You have, by clicking my business card, you have my email address. Contact me. Tell me you met me at this presentation. I'm much more likely to tag you for an interview and to get your resume noticed, or at least put a note in my system that you attended something, and you will get credit for that in terms of when you apply for a job. So it's really important that those one-on-one connections that you make is how you get a job. Even in this day of connection platforms and clicking the button, don't ever forget that. So use this opportunity to take my card, link in with me on LinkedIn when you leave here. This is a networking opportunity that's really important. Okay? Directly contact companies, not jobs. So start thinking about your flexible work search, not about just the vacancy and the role, but think about it about what companies do I want to work for? What companies do I think would value the skill set that I have and offer me a flexible work arrangement? Start searching, spend your time searching those companies and finding ways to get in. Using LinkedIn, using your own personal network, find ways to get into those companies. And when you find that company that you think could be a good fit for you, and you don't know anybody at that company, not a soul, what are you going to do? Who do you send your resume to? Who would you send your resume to? Okay. Don't send it to HR. HR, because of the terrible way the job search process is in our country these days, where it's all automated, and we're using technology, we've taken out the human element. And unfortunately, it's so easy, just as it's so super easy for you to click the button to send your resume into a company, it's they're now inundated with resumes. And so the HR person's job is no longer to find possibilities when they look at resumes. They've got a stack of 100 and they've got to whittle it down to 3 to 5 people that they're going to interview. They're just looking for reasons to weed you out. So you're in transition, weed out, because everything on your resume is of a different field than what they're looking for. You've got a gap in your resume, the system quantifies how many months that is, weed out. So don't send it to HR. Somebody said hiring manager. The hiring manager is the person who you're going to work for. The person who has a budget to hire you, or the small budget. So that person sees possibilities because maybe you could be more affordable. Or maybe that person has an understanding of his or her entire team and knows that they need a certain kind of candidate, like a creative candidate. Or maybe they don't need the creative candidate. They've got too many creative people on their team that think outside the box, and they need somebody who's super detail-oriented. Depending upon what they need, that person can look at your resume and see possibilities. So that's the person who you need to find. And at the small business, that's the VP, the president, you'll figure out who that person is pretty quickly on their website, on their About Us page. Okay? Sell your strengths. Maybe you are really experienced and you're not looking anymore for a 40-hour work week where you have to manage 50 people. Or maybe you're super experienced, but you don't want to be on the road traveling 2 weeks out of the month. Let them know what it is that you want. Hey, I don't want the manager job anymore. I want to be the sole contributor, but I have management experience that could really add value to your team as well, right? If you don't need benefits, let them know that. If you're open to fluctuating hours, sell that. Hook them with it. So, other tips. Be clear on your goals. Like that example I just gave. If your resume is all about leading people and you don't want that anymore, you want to be the sole contributor, let them know that up front. Don't wait until the end of the interview for them to say, I think you're overqualified for this position. Hit it up front. I know you think I'm overqualified for this position, but this is why I want this job. And let them know what it is. And often by doing that, you alleviate that concern. That concern goes away. Hook them with your talent, then negotiate for the flexibility. Nobody is going to give you flexibility because you want it. Nobody is going to hire you because you need flexibility. So our candidates come running to us. We have lots and lots of candidates because they get it. They want it. They know what flexibility, the value of it to them. But do you think that's what we sell to our clients? We don't go out there to our clients and say, we've got these great candidates, but they really need to be home for the school bus. We've got these really great candidates, but they really don't want to put full-time because they're involved in XYZ volunteer activities. No. We talk about how you are an exceptional talent pool, and how you can hit the ground running, and how you don't chit-chat by the water cooler. You're in there, you're to get your work done, and you get out, and you add a tremendous amount of value, and you're often more productive than people who work 40 hours. That's what we find. And we also find that you are committed, you have staying power, and you have social skills that other talent pools don't have. Soft skills. So that's what you should be selling.
A question with just a minute left here.
Sure.
I wanted to ask whether, just out of curiosity, is flex to perm a thing? Are companies, if someone was
Flex
interested
to full
go
time?
full time with
So,
benefits?
yes. If you're looking just for full time and you really don't care about flexibility, you're only entertaining the idea of flexibility in order to get a full-time job, we're pretty good at weeding you out, and we won't put you in front of a client. Because the model's not for everybody. And we have a commitment to our clients to provide them with people, because it's what we sell, that truly want part-time and flexible work, right? Having said that, we also have a lot of candidates that it's a great transition option. You haven't been working, part-time is a great transition option. It's hard to go from 0 to 40. It's a lot easier to go from 0 to 10 to 20 to 40, right? Especially if you feel not confident and your skills maybe aren't as sharp. But with growing businesses, we have businesses that say, and candidates, and we try to make these matches. Listen, right now I'm good with 20 hours a week, and the client might say, I only need you for 20 hours a week. But if you can do what I think you can do, and I want to grow, I might need you for 40 hours a week in 2 years, or in 1 year, or in 6 months. And as long as that's okay with you, the employee, and it's okay with the employer, as long as there's transparency there, then we are very happy to place in a role like that. So understanding your needs and understanding the employer's needs and us making that match is what we do. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. I see there are limitations there.
Yeah.
The employer doesn't want someone who's just going to bail as soon as they get it.
Right.
Full-time.
Right.
With benefits.
Yep. Yep.
Maybe can we move into the Q&A now? Or
Yep.
do you want a couple
I think I'm done. And I think we talked about most of these. I think you guys talked about a little bit about this, about smart volunteering is a great way to get into an organization. If you want flexible work, it's a great way to get into any organization. Pursuing an internship or the equivalent if you're changing roles and you just need that work experience. I've got these resources. So please take my card, or if you want, I can put a piece of paper down. If you want me to send you the PowerPoint, I can do that. Okay? Look, applying for jobs, super easy. Just go on and submit your resume. There's no cost or obligation on your part at all. And we also have a weekly newsletter of all of our new jobs come out. So even if you're not sure if the model's for you, sign up for the newsletter. You can always unsubscribe. It'll give you a sense of the opportunities that are out there. That's it.
Thank you so much.